Hello everyone, myself Nerityajeet. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I hope you all are doing great, guys. So today in this video we are going to learn about plant respiration. That is plant respiration. So basically in this chapter we will be looking for answer to some of these questions like why is breathing so essential to life? What happens when we breathe? Do all living organisms including plant and macros breathe? Meaning why? Why question is मतलब breathing why is so essential to life? Why is so necessary? What happens when we breathe? ठीक है तो all these questions like we will deal about these answer in this chapter. Do all living organisms including plants and macros breathe? So if so, how? All living organisms need energy for carrying out daily activities like absorption, transport, movement, reproduction, or even breathing. As we all know that breathing is essential process of our life. So when we breathe, simply breathe in, take air in and out. So this is simply process is breathing, intake and exhale of air. So when we breathe, air brings oxygen in our body. That oxygen break down simple food molecules like carbohydrate, glucose, starch, sucrose. Then for breaking these molecules, energy is released. That energy is converted in the form of ATP. That we all know ATP is the energy currency of the cell. This ATP is now utilized by body and for these purposes like absorption, transport, movement, reproduction, or even breathing. All these processes are all these processes are done with the help of what? With the help of respiration. That is for energy production by breathing. So breathing and respiration, both the processes are interconnected. So move forward. Where does all this energy come from? Next question is where does all this energy come from? So as we know, this energy come from food by breakdown with the help of oxygen. That process is respiration. We know we eat food for energy, but how is this energy taken from food? How is this energy utilized? How is this energy utilized? Do all food give the same amount of energy? Do plant eats no. Plant do not eat but make their own food. That's why we call them autotrophs. Where do plants get their energy from? And macroorganism for their energy requirement, do they eat food? So all these types of questions we will discuss about in this chapter. You may wonder at the several questions raised above. They may seem to be very disconnected. ठीक है तो all these questions which we are discussed above are seem to be very disconnected, but in reality the process of breathing is very much connected to the process of release of energy from food. So but in reality for what? Breathing breathing and energy, or we can say respiration, both the process are interconnected. In reality both the process and all these questions are interconnected. ठीक है तो when we simply breathe in oxygen through air, that oxygen break down food. From food energy release. So all these processes are interconnected. Let us try and understand how this happens. All the energy required for life process is obtained by oxidation of some macromolecule that we call food. So simply all the energy comes from by which process? That process is respiration. So respiration, what happens actually in respiration is that oxidation of food. Means oxidation is what? Oxidation is addition of oxygen. Okay, as we all know, oxidation is addition of oxygen, and reduction is removal of oxygen or addition of hydrogen. That is simply reduction. So when food oxidize with oxygen, when food oxidize, or simply attack of oxygen on it, attack of oxygen, then these foods are breakdown simple foods like glucose, carbohydrate. For breakdown in this process, energy is released. All the energy required for lab process is obtained by oxidation of some macromolecules that we call food. Green plants and cyanobacteria can prepare their own food. As you all know, green plants and cyanobacteria means blue green algae. They are autotrophs. Can prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis chapter we will discuss earlier. They trap light energy and convert it into chemical energy. So simply, how they can make their own food? Simply, they trap light energy in the chloroplast. So chloroplast, they have thylakoids in their chloroplast. Thylakoid membrane traps light energy and absorb water and minerals from soil, temperature, outside environment. So for all these things, they make their own food. Simply, photosynthesis, they trap the light energy and convert it into chemical energy that is stored in the bonds of carbohydrate like glucose, sucrose, and starch. That is stored in the carbohydrates like glucose, sucrose, and starch. We must remember that in green plants too, not all cells, tissue, and organ photosynthesis. As we all know, in green plants, some woody parts like stem and other parts, they do not photosynthesize. Only those part can photosynthesis, can make their own food, which are green or which have chlorophyll present in their cells. So that in green plants too, not all cell, tissue, and organ photosynthesis. Only cells containing chloroplast. Only cells containing chloroplast that are most often located in the superficial layers. A superficial layer is the outermost layer, carry out photosynthesis. So only those cells which have their chloroplast, only these types of cells can make their own food, carry out photosynthesis. Hence, even in green plants, all other organ, tissues, and cells that are non-green need food for oxidation. Means means that part of a plant which is woody, or where cells have not their own chloroplast. So that part of plant would provide oxygen for breakdown of food, oxidation, by which oxidation, food breakdown, and energy is released. Hence, food has to be translocated. The word translocation is movement of food from one place to another. Simply, that is translocation. So hence, food has to be translocated to all non-green parts. Animals are heterotrophic, as we all know. Animals are heterotrophic, meaning they are dependent on other living organism for their food. Other organism for their food. They obtain food from plants directly as herbivores or indirectly as carnivores. So they obtain directly dependent on plants, that is herbivores, or indirectly depends on plants. Indirectly depends, uh, heterotrophs. Heterotrophs directly plants Yeah, indirectly plants, meaning they are carnivore. But in carnivore, simply the line says that all living organisms are directly or indirectly depend on what? What? That is plants. All living organism depends on plants because the plants are autotrophs. They make their own food. All living organisms directly depend on plant, directly eat plants and gain energy from it, or they eat other animal. That animal eat plants, so indirectly depend on plant. Saprophytes like fungi. Saprophytes are those animals which are survive on dead and decaying matter. So saprophytes are which those organisms which are survive on dead and decaying matter. So as we know, fungi organisms are saprophyte, dependent on dead and decaying matter. What is important to recognize is that ultimately all the food that is required for life process comes from photosynthesis. So ultimately, what is the basic for energy is photosynthesis. So all the food, all the energy required for life process comes from what? Photosynthesis. This chapter deals with the cellular respiration or the mechanism of breakdown of food material within the cell to release energy. Breakdown of food material means glucose. Glucose. Its formula is C6H12O6. When these carbon-carbon bonds broken down with the help of oxygen, when these carbon-carbon bonds broken down with the help of oxygen, then energy is released. Energy is released and trapped in the form of ATP. And the trapping of this energy for synthesis of ATP. Photosynthesis, of course, takes place within the chloroplast. As we all know, photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast in the eukaryotes, where is the breakdown of complex molecule to yield energy takes place in the cytoplasm. And photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast, and breakdown of complex molecule to yield energy takes place in the complex molecules simple carbohydrates, glucose, sucrose, starch. So photosynthesis means production of food, carbohydrate, yes, glucose. So this is photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, two reaction occurs: light reaction and dark reaction. In light reaction, ATP and NADPH produced from light reaction products. We make plant make food for themselves. So in chloroplast, photosynthesis occurs, but respiration occurs in where is the breakdown of complex molecule to yield energy takes place in the cytoplasm and in the mitochondria. Also only in eukaryotes. The cytoplasm and mitochondria in eukaryotes. The breaking of carbon-carbon bonds of a complex compound through oxidation. Oxidation means addition of oxygen within the cells, leading to a release of considerable amount of energy is called respiration. So this is basically respiration, breaking of carbon-carbon bond with the help of oxidation or oxidation process, and energy release, and that energy is trapped in the form of ATP. So this process is respiration. And respiration occurs at several levels, so we can say cellular respiration. The compounds that are oxidized during this process are known as respiratory substances, and that compound which are used, that is glucose, oxygen, etc., are these as respiratory substrate. So the compound that are oxidized means oxidized, which compound oxidized, that is carbohydrate means glucose. So this is what? This is substrate. Usually, carbohydrates are oxidized to release energy, but proteins, fats, and even organic acid can be used as respiratory substances in some plants. Usually, our respiratory substrate is carbohydrate like glucose, but protein, fats, and even organic acid can be used as respiratory substance in some plant. These are used as respiratory substance. Under certain condition, during oxidation within a cell, all the energy contained in respiratory substance is not released free into the cell. So in certain condition, all the energies which were trapped in the molecule like glucose is not freely released into the cell or in a single step. So basically, respiration is not a single step process. Is not a single step process. It is a series of reaction process in which so many reaction occur to break down one by one all the its bond, a carbon carbon bond, uh, by which energy is released. So it is not a single step reaction that simply glucose and oxidation occurs and then energy is released. It's not a single step reaction, it is a series of reaction. So in respiratory substance is not released free into the cell or in a single step. It is released in a series of slow stepwise reaction controlled by enzymes. Controlled by enzymes, and it is trapped as chemical energy in the form of ATP and trapped in the form of ATP. Hence, it is important to understand that the energy released by oxidation in respiration is not, or rather cannot be used directly, but is used synthesis of ATP. So, energy released by breaking of carbon-carbon bonds is not used directly, but stored for later use in the form of ATP, in the form of energy currency, that is ATP. So in form of ATP, energy is stored, which is broken down whenever and wherever energy needs to be utilized, and when and where. So from these points, when we need for energy, then these ATP bonds are broken and energy utilized. Hence, ATP acts as the energy currency of the cell. This energy trapped in ATP is utilized in various energy requiring process of the organism, and the carbon skeleton produced during respiration is used as a precursor for biosynthesis of other molecule in the cell. So basically what it means. So respiration process is not just release of energy, but also produce some smaller carbon compounds like pyruvate, acetyl coenzyme A, which we will be discussed later in this chapter. And these smaller carbon compounds are known as carbon skeleton. And these smaller compounds are known as carbon skeleton. And these carbon skeleton are the building blocks or precursor for other molecules like amino acid, lipids, chlorophyll. So this line is what's saying. ATP acts as this energy trapped in ATP is utilized in various energy requiring process of the organism, and the carbon skeleton produced during respiration. So energy with energy, some smaller carbon compounds will be produced in process respiration. That carbon compounds are known as carbon skeleton, which is pyruvate, acetyl coenzyme A, and some intermediate of Krebs cycle. So these are known as carbon skeleton, which are the building blocks or precursor for other macromolecules or simple molecules like lipid, amino acid, chlorophyll, etc. Next topic is, do plant breathe? Do plant breathe? So yes, yes, of course, plant breathe. Plant breathe through stomata, lenticell in their bark. Well, the answer to this question is not quite so direct. Answer to this question is not quite so direct because in plants there is no proper respiratory way for these gases, because most of the organ, yeah, most of the part of plant respire their own. Yes, plants require oxygen for respiration to occur, and they also give out carbon dioxide. Like human beings, plant also inhale oxygen for breaking their food and give out carbon dioxide. Hence, plants have system in place that ensure the availability of oxygen. Plants, unlike animals, have no specialized organ for gaseous action. Like in oxygen, there is various mechanism which we were discussed in breathing and exchange of gases chapter. Plants have such like these organs, but they have stomata and lenticel for this purpose. Stomata in their leaves and superficial layers, and lenticels are present in their bark. But stomata and lenticel for this purpose, for what purpose? For breathing. There are several reasons why plants can get along without respiratory organs. So there are several reasons why a plant can get along without respiratory organs. Because the main reason is because each part of plant is fulfill their demand for oxygen by their own, meaning mostly plant parts respire their own by simply direct contacting with environment. So there is no need for special mechanism for exchange of resident and these. Each plant part take care of its own gas exchange needs. There is very little transport of gases from one part to another. Second, plants do not present great demands for gas exchange. Plants do not have great demands for gas exchange. Roots, stems, and leaves respire at rates far lower than animals do. So animals use more energy, so more use of breathing, more need for breathing and more need for energy. But root, stems, and leaves respire at rate far lower than animals do. Only during photosynthesis are large volume of gases exchange. Only the process photosynthesis large volume of gases exchange, because at the time of photosynthesis the main process is happen what is that is carbon fixation, carboxylation. So for carbon fixation, exchange of carbon dioxide gas from the atmosphere and release of oxygen by the plants. So at the time of photosynthesis, large volume of gases exchange. Each leaf is well adapted to take care of its own needs during this period. So each leaf is well adapted to take care of its own needs during this period. What period? That is photosynthesis. When cell photosynthesis, availability of oxygen is not a problem in these cells. When cell photosynthesis, availability of oxygen is not problem in this cell, since oxygen is released within the cell. Thirdly, distance that gases must diffuse even in large bulky plant is not great. So distance what for exchange for uh, air is not much. ठीक है? From one part to another part there is exchange of gases not much, or the transport of gases not much. Each living cell in a plant is located quite close to the surface of the plant. So most of the living cell survive at their superficial layer, outermost layer. Each living cell in a plant is located quite close to the surface of the plant. This is true for leaves. This is true for leaves. You may ask, but what about thick woody stems and roots? In stems, the living cells are organized in a thin layer inside the beneath of the bark. So in stems, living cell are organized in a thin layer inside beneath the bark. Means this is the brown color bark of the stem, and below it, just below it, there is a layer of living cell. They also have an opening called lenticell, and in bark there is lenticell present. There is lenticel present. From these lenticel, exchange of gases takes place. Exchange of gases takes place. So that's how living cells need fulfill their demands for oxygen. The cells in the interior are dead, and interior cells are dead. Interior cells are dead. So dead cell not use oxygen, provide only mechanical support, and these dead cells provide only mechanical support. Thus, most cells of plant have at least a part of their surface in contact with the air. So most of the living cell directly contact with the air and fulfill their demands. This is also facilitated by the loose packing of parenchyma cells in leaves, stems, and roots, which provide an interconnected network for airspace and interconnected network for airspace. The complete combustion of glucose, which produce carbon dioxide and H2O as end product, yields energy, most of which is given out as heat. So this is about glucose combustion. So in glucose combustion with oxygen, CO2 and H2O are the products, or the we can say byproducts with energy. Energy is released as heat. If this energy is to be useful to the cell, it should be able to utilize it towards the cell, other molecules that the cell require. If demand of need for energy that time, then this energy is used. Otherwise, it is trapped in the form of ATP bonds. The strategy that the plant cell uses is to catabolize the glucose molecule in such a way that not all the liberated energy goes out as heat. Meaning, so simply what it means. So glucose is not directly combust and energy as heat. If it happens, then energy is raised. Energy is, but it is a series of reaction. It is a series of reaction. So in each step, energy is accumulated. So the strategy that the plant cell uses is to catabolize or breakdown of glucose molecule in such a way that not all the liberated energy goes out as heat. And what strategy is? The key is to oxidize glucose not in one step but in several small steps. So, for breaking glucose molecule in several small steps, we can collect cell can collect energy. Some steps to be just large enough such that the energy released can be coupled to ATP synthesis. How this is done is essentially the story of respiration. That is the story of respiration. During the process of respiration, oxygen is utilized. So during the process of respiration, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide and water and energy are released. So simply in the respiration process, oxygen is utilized, or the carbohydrate molecule is oxidized, and the product is from this reaction is carbon dioxide, water, and energy released as products. The combustion reaction requires oxygen, but some cells live where oxygen may or may not available, but some cell also present where oxygen may or may not available. Can you think of such situation and organism where oxygen is not available? And these are called anaerobic organism. There are sufficient reason to believe that the first cell on the planet lived in an atmosphere that lacked oxygen. So, from evolution, there is a demand for oxygen, but first cell on the lives, that organism is anaerobic. Even among present day living organisms, we know of several that are adapted to anaerobic condition. Some of these organisms are facultative anaerobes, and these organisms are called facultative anaerobes. While in others, the requirement for anaerobic condition is obligate. In any case, all living organisms retain the enzymatic machinery to partially oxidize glucose, and the enzymatic machinery is respiration, aerobic respiration, with the help of glucose partially in the series of reaction breakdown of glucose and collect energy without the help of oxygen. And all living organisms retain enzymatic and machinery to partially oxidize glucose without the help of oxygen. In this is the uh, written about anaerobes, where oxygen is not present anaerobic environment, so it partially oxidizes glucose. This breakdown of glucose to pyruvic acid is called glycolysis. So glycolysis is basically the first step of respiration, and it is a 10-step process, glycolysis, in which glucose to pyruvic acid, breakdown of glucose to pyruvic acid in a 10-step process, and energy is collected. So in the next part of this chapter, that is episode 2, we will continue this chapter with glycolysis. So thank you very much, uh, and I hope you understand the concept clearly. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask in the comments. So if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe or like. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.